Yeah, Dr. Hopkins is also there now. So, hi everybody. Very good evening to all of you all. As we are nearing the weekend, I'm sure that we are waiting for the weekend to really come. Maybe every day is a weekend and every day is a working day during the lockdown days. Today we have special guests with us speaking on the subject which is most required in the times that we are today. In 2014, we started with Startup India, and since then, a lot of entrepreneurs have come forth. But today, we are going to talk about not only the mainstream entrepreneurship, but also about the social entrepreneurship, which is the need of the hour, which promotes all the SDGs, all the ESGs, and all the social development activities in a way such that we can make everything more sustainable. So today we have Dr. Smriti Pava, who's also leading the course on social entrepreneurship and disruptive innovation beginning in the coming month from 12th of October to 16th of October. We have Miss Sumati Rao, who's been leading in the social development sector and is a very renowned professional in the space. We have Dr. Michael Hopkins. Well, all of you all know who Dr. Michael Hopkins is. I don't know if we need to introduce him, but he's a CEO of MHCI. He also had organized one of our training sessions on COVID-19 pandemic, CSR and sustainability leadership. And all the people who are attending, it's wonderful to see everybody again, and I really look forward for this session and understand more about social entrepreneurship and disruptive innovations. Over to you, Dr. Pava.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So a very warm welcome to all of you who are joining us here and who are kind of looking at joining us through the live feeds and who will be watching this later, making time for this very important and pertinent subject. I'm Dr. Smriti Pahwa, and as the founder of the MOC mindset, what I call missed opportunities cognizant mindset, when I had just released my book summating case studies of innovative design modeling, building cost-effective, high ROI models for social impact, applying my doctorate in nutrition and degrees in education and management across sectors and systems, CSOs, for-profit, not-for-profit, NGOs, CSR schools, and more. And, looking at this entire landscape as a researcher, policy advocate, and practitioner. And when I was, after the book, when I was invited to curate this and lead this course on social entrepreneurship, which has already been announced to be released from October 12th, I could not help but look at this invite through the MOC mindset. And I'll tell you how. So through that mindset, I looked at opportunities as well as missed opportunities that could have been. Opportunities being, looking at this whole landscape, looking at the course, looking at the subject, and bringing in nuances around the nuts and bolts, how to go about it, what is entrepreneurship, how is it different from social entrepreneurship, fundraising and business plans and strategy, and all that forms the part of the course that will be coming. But the missed opportunity that I thought existed was to create this space to get in as many diverse, experienced, expert voices who have looked at this space in one way or the other from their perspective, right? From where they have been. When I was asked to, make a brief for the course, and we were looking at, who should attend the course, to my mind, it was everyone, because it is more like it was said, it is the need of the hour. Entrepreneurship is, I think everybody should be having an entrepreneurial thinking, and social entrepreneurship is now called for more than ever. So I'm very happy that we have created these roundtables. We have had one earlier, and today we have been able to get time from these eminent people, Miss Sumati Rao and Dr. Hopkins, who have joined us today. So thank you so much. And I could do a traditional introduction to you, reading out your briefs, both of yours, but I think your brief does not do justice to your achievements and your experience. So let me start off with, off the bat saying, let me do a little disruptive innovation here in getting introductions and getting the session started. How about let me put this to you, saying that how do you see social entrepreneurship? I see it, and I see it as a place to apply mindsets, as a place which is innovative, and innovations kind of run through the heart and soul of entrepreneurship, and how you apply to the SDGs, to sustainability space, to make place for social entrepreneurship. I would want each one of you to kind of reflect upon, to get the session started. How do you see social entrepreneurship, its potential, its relevance, its need, basis where all have you been, basis your experience? So if you allow me, let me not be too disruptive and be with the tradition of ladies first. So if I may invite Ms. Rumati Rao first, and then Dr. Hopkins, I'll come to you. So over to you, Ms. Sumati, please.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Smriti. Thank you so much. And I think I'm going to learn a lot from all of you while I share, the little that my 2 bits of wisdom, so to say. Smriti, Michael, and others, to me, social and entrepreneurship really is about doing business, or creating an innovation or an initiative for a social cause, where success is not measured by profit alone, but it actually addresses a need for the society, right? And if in the present situation, and most importantly, if COVID has taught us anything at all, it is this deep social consciousness, right? If you could see during this situation, especially in India, there were a lot of small neighborhoods that came out to feed the migrants, right? Little entrepreneurship at a very basic level in their own way, right? Even teenage girls, went out and did what they could and things like that. So that's one part of it. And I think UN this time has defined this is a decade for action, where it is going to be driven by entrepreneurship, and we have Startup India and the other things. So for me, I think social, when I say social entrepreneurship in the right sense of the word, in the true spirit of its implementation, for me would be about relevance, about addressing a need, about actually moving the needle on a cause, and which is measurable, by not creating parallel systems, but leveraging existing ones, actually identifying a need. And if you're able to address either scale, in case of healthcare, if you are able to create accessible healthcare to people who are already implementing it, bring partnerships together, not go it alone, that for me is really social, entrepreneurship. Of course, I'm not saying don't make a profit, please do, but also measure yourself by how many beneficiaries have you touched, and how have you qualitatively impacted those lives. That's really my basic definition.
Sure. Thank you, Sumati, for this. You've touched, and I was making some points while you were speaking. So, and we'll come to that. But thank you. You have done a brilliant job. We have not exchanged scripts. I did not make a script, but I think you've kind of laid the this thing for further discussions. But let's hear now from Dr. Hopkins. So, Dr. Hopkins, before I come to you, just 2-3, just from where Sumati left off, she said, success not just being measured by financial this thing, and we are talking about triple bottom lines. We have been talking about that, right? And this pandemic kind of making it even more evident. There have been reports that have shown how the mindset of millennials have changed. There have been studies that have shown, that how from social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, the evolution which had to take place towards corporate social business models or sustainability business models, with this pandemic, that might be even more amplified. So from that, I know you are an authority on the global perspective of CSR. So would you like to reflect on the subject from a corporate lens of how the landscape has changed, and hence the need for triple bottom lines, and weaving that in the sustainability in the corporate landscape? So over to you, Dr. Hopkins. Are you on mute?
So sorry.
Holidaying.
I'm sorry. No, this is only the third one I've given today, Sorry, just a minute. We have another one going out on my terrace right now on IDPs. Okay, my partner's closing the door. Yes, I think from social entrepreneurship, it's interesting. It's the first time I've ever given a talk on it, actually, but I have actually been involved in that issue, and I think my interest came from my CSR course, which, as you know, I adopt a multi-stakeholder view of looking at social responsibility and a strategic approach for a company or even an institution. And one of my speakers was from, and I think you've heard this story before, Smriti, so I'm sorry if you heard it before, but I invited the head of corporate responsibility to my course from the Union Bank of Switzerland, one of the biggest banks in Switzerland, if not one of the bigger ones in the world. And he was head of their CSR and ethical group. And we were talking about CSR, and he first said, thinking about CSR as philanthropy, and he said one of the problems that we find with philanthropy is that we invest 1 million Swiss francs, and then we find we get not only zero return on our investment, but we lose all our capital. So this can't be. So that's when I started thinking a little bit more about social enterprise. And I've got a couple of slides that I've got on the web that I looked up just beforehand. Let me see if I can get them. First of all, let me show you a screen of one of the NGOs that I was working with, which was a very big NGO. Let me see if I can. The host has disabled my participant screen sharing. So Harsha, she's obviously gone on running 3 other Zoom sessions, but are you there? I can't seem to share my screen.
There were other folks from IICSR. I'll just type in, I could do that.
Can you just look up, let me put on the chat, this website, misakenya.org. Can you see that? That's the first page of it I was going to put up, so that instead of seeing my ugly face, you could actually see something more interesting.
Why don't you talk about it, and I'll kind of flash a message.
Let me talk about it. And I did also have 2 other pages, one on social entrepreneurship, a global view of India and Indian experiences, which is pretty interesting. And I also looked at the United Kingdom, and I was quite surprised how much activity was going on in both countries. If we don't get to those slides, I can forward them to people. You can find them anyway by Googling social entrepreneurship in India and the United Kingdom, and 2 rather interesting experiences, and also two definitions, rather lengthy definitions. And I think what you said just now, Sumati. Do I pronounce your name okay? Sumati is pretty much on ball with what I read, and the same. Now let me go back to this NGO called MISA. Smriti, you know I don't have much to say, and already I feel I'm taking a lot of time. Uh, how much more can I speak for, Smriti?
Sure.
5 more minutes is okay?
Why don't we, so, I flashed, by the time IICSR folks figure out how to share your screen. In the meantime, let me, of what you have said so far and what Sumati has said so far, let me put a few kind of reflective points to you. You said, your last this thing was, you read two rather lengthy definitions on social entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And in fact, this whole area, including the definition, including the legalities around that, is evolving, right? In India, at least, right?
Indeed.
And it has been there, but it has been called an ECC. There was this, I was reading this, and it was like essentially contested concept, basically, right? So no matter, let's not get caught in the definitions. What I wanted to kind of highlight a reflection area for both of you to respond was a few things that have kind of happened, and basically from a corporate lens and from this pandemic lens, right? Now, the corporate, and why I'm kind of bringing the corporate lens today more and more. Last roundtable, we had the student lens and the grassroots entrepreneurial lens, and how it should be the essence of entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, how it should be embedded in the education system. So we discussed all that. This is in keeping with my belief that who should be bothered about social entrepreneurship, who should be looking at social entrepreneurship, who should be wanting to know what is it all about, right? So I believe, and thanks for bringing that up, that there is this definite corporate view which has been relevant, like you said, and which has become even more relevant. And Sumati, you talked about UN's position. Their observation note, we all know 27th June has been announced as micro and small and medium sized enterprises day, right? And it is in view of the fact, and these are observations made, that SMEs basically create 7 out of 10 jobs. These are facts. About 90% of all firms accounting on an average for 60 to 70% of total employment and 50% of GDP. More so now, it is estimated that 600 million jobs will be needed by 2030 to absorb the growing global workforce. So from a corporate kind of lens and from an investment kind of lens, the SME sector, the startup sector, the MSME sector is relevant, and it's becoming more relevant because it will drive the economy. It has been driving the economy. Now, from the investment lens, it is kind of said, and it is a fact, that social entrepreneurs, the social enterprises, are more likely, Michael, which you just mentioned, the ESG, so they are more likely to be in that space, especially the social enterprises, and hence more probably relatively more attractive investment grounds for the venture capitalists from the ESG perspective. And so this was there. But what has happened in this pandemic is, and there was this one statistic that really caught my eye, which was like 86% of millennials, and this is Deloitte's human capital trend study that came in, and it said that the respondents said that the business success should be measured more in terms of much more than just financial performance. So people are talking about the triple bottom lines, right? And furthermore, there was an increase Earlier this statistic was, I think, around 70-75%, and then later it has become 86%, and this has become even more. The voices on social entrepreneurship have grown even more, especially because of the context, especially because of the pandemic that we are in. Sumati, I'll come to you on healthcare because I know much of your experience comes from there. But Michael, I wanted to kind of, ask you if the way we've been talking about CSRs, and you've been talking about sustainability, and we've been talking about, how the SDGs have to marry into the CSRs, and now with the landscape changing, there is one, how I see this is that CSR is kind of, there are CSRs which are supporting social entrepreneurs or projects in a project mode, which you always say, that CSR is running in a project mode. But I think now when the landscape is changing hugely, when entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship is kind of transforming from, yes, it is good to have, from that to actually that is the only way. Entrepreneurship will become the only way, and social entrepreneurship will have a part in the pie, right? So from that perspective, how would you reflect upon internal strategizing, internal thinking of the corporate social responsibility, given that the millennials, I mean, their employees want the company to be more responsible, given that a way to become more responsible and sustainable is to engage with the social entrepreneurship landscape. So I feel that, if I was a corporate CSR person, I would want to know about this more, so that I can kind of, A, understand the projects that I'm doing, and B, try to put this entrepreneurial mindset, try to put this gear towards the social entrepreneurship, towards accentuating social impact innovatively. So I would want to scratch the surface. Do you, because the landscape has changed, what was 10 years ago and what is it now, and what it will be in next 10 years, it is going to be completely different. So do you want to reflect on how all these facts and figures and trends, and by the way, the social innovation trends that came out 2020 2030, that says next decade of social innovation, it says the number one trend is that, business, it is not a choice now. Businesses have to become responsible, and I can't find the report, but it was very interesting. That was the top first trend there. So do you want to reflect something upon how it has evolved? Nothing is new. Social entrepreneurship was there. It has been there, but it has been evolving. But the amplification of the relevance of the need and the potential, and its imbibement into the corporate responsibility philosophy, so to say. Do you want to reflect on that?
Yeah, I think, Smriti, as usual, you've asked me 25 questions. I don't know, through your usual brilliance, which is, it's always lovely to be maybe this time a victim of it. I don't mind at all. I think what's really interesting, and you mentioned that, is yes, all this stuff has been known for hundreds of years, but I think today it's changing incredibly rapidly. I mean, I've been in this corporate social responsibility field for 25 years. And these days, I don't have to explain it anymore. Everybody thinks they know what it's all about. And most companies have got a program. And I've got a lot of work going on with different companies on different aspects of this space. And I won't bore you with going on to each of those examples. But basically what you're saying is right, that companies are now aware much more than ever before of, well, you can call it social impact, just for a phrase. But what does that mean? What does impact mean? What does social mean? And the rest of it. But there's no question that companies, big, medium, and small, and one of the projects I'm working on is actually a group of companies in a country in Europe which wants to export and is exporting to another big country. And that big country, which is Canada, is asking, what are you doing on social responsibility or social impact? How are you treating women? what are you doing in the environment? Well, what are your products made of, and all sorts of things. So all these questions that we've been working on for so long are right up front. So this issue is very, very, very lively. One company came to me here, and they've come up with using a solar-powered borehole system, right, which stops women having to walk miles to collect water, which is a traditional role that in many rural villages. And so I say, well, that looks wonderful. How much does it cost? Can they make it themselves? And they say, well, no, we'll sell it, but we'll sell it at a discount because we're interested in social impact. We're interested in actually helping people and creating jobs. So part of our corporate responsibility program. So just a very simple example. And now you're getting hundreds of them coming in. The big companies like Nestle and Shell and BP and have really been there all along. And as you know, and I've bored you before on this, I've been writing a book on this for the last couple of years. And I've nearly finished it, actually. And you know why I want to finish it quickly? Because it keeps changing almost every week. Is that every time I write something, I find out that somebody else is ahead of me, or they're going further with the ideas. I mean, oil companies, for example, are moving into renewables. They just realize that that global warming is a real thing, and they don't want to be responsible for it anymore. So they're moving into all these areas, including supporting projects which are what before would be called kind of NGO projects. And one of my problems, as you know, with NGOs, and I'm certainly not against them, never have been, and they're doing a lot of valuable work right across the world. But my problem always with NGOs was that they would pick a specific problem in a specific couple of villages, and they would focus there. And when the whole country needs that. So I always say to such NGOs, what's your impact on policy? Are you looking at that as well? So I have this framework, and I think I bored you with that before, called the 3M, that I think every NGO should have: a macro, meso, and micro. But the additional aspect of what we're talking about today is social entrepreneurship. And with NGOs, all the time, I'm saying to them, how are you going to make are you going to turn that into a revenue stream over time in the future? Now, clearly, some of them, for example, NGOs dealing with handicapped people and so on, going to be hard to make money as a social entrepreneur in that way, although there are aspects that you can do. And I think I mentioned this example before when I was in Romania last year. And I always like to get out into the countryside and talk to people and about what's going on. The big issue in Europe is immigration, emigration, and they're complaining about Romania. I mean, I totally dislike all those complaints, and they're total rubbish, because the people who are going from Romania to the rest of Europe are highly educated, sending back money into Romania, who are building houses like they're no before and buying European fridges and TVs and the rest of it. It's all part of the circular economy that we've been speaking about. But anyway, so there I was talking, looking at what's going on. I always like to get out and find out and educate my intuition, because as you get older and uglier, you find out less than you thought you did. So it's always good to get information through discussion, which in ways Zoom has been great for this. And as I said, this is my third, I think, Zoom today. And it's absolutely wonderful, because I sat in the same chair. I did change my shirt. Anyway, I'm getting off the subject. I went to Romania. I came back into town, and there was a young lady with a collection box saying, "Can you give me some money?" And she was very smartly addressed, and it was obviously an official box, not a scam. And I said, "Well, yes. Well, what are you doing?" And she said, "Well, we're supporting an orphanage. And we take young kids. Sometimes they've been left by their families. Maybe those people have emigrated abroad. I don't know. And we try and look after them. And we look after them from when they're almost babies until they're 15, 16, 17 years of age. So we're educating them. And so we have education facilities and so on. So I said, well, that's damn impressive and really useful. But I said, the problem is that next year you're going to be here again when I come by. In fact, I didn't get by there this year because of COVID, and you're going to ask me again for money. And the thing is, what I will ask you is how far you've gone along this suggestion, which is you are graduating people from your orphanage and your school and your system and so on. And these people then go out to work. Do you have a contract with them that they can sign that they would guarantee a certain amount of their income? Because of you, they've increased their human capital, and therefore, could they not pay something back? I said, not even for everybody, because some people probably won't go into a position where they could afford, but those people who could. So we make the contract quite flexible. And you would find that you get an income stream. So all of a sudden, you're becoming a social enterprise. Can you move towards that? The same with MISA, the MISA.org, which is an NGO in this country, which has done fabulous work in one of the biggest slums in Africa, using sport to promote social development. And they've had something like 150,000 graduates. And I said, that's absolutely amazing. And a lot of them are politicians and lawyers and businessmen. And, Harsha just came on and went off and made a sound. But anyway, a lot of them are businessmen and well-known politicians, and absolutely incredible what's happening. That was not me.
That is a prank.
That came from Harsha. Anyway, I'm coming to the end of this little story. I put the website.
Is that a timer? This is a disruptive innovative timer, I think.
No, Harsha would never do that.
Well, you see, that is the reason why I don't make it give away the login credentials publicly. Because when I do that, then people join and they do funny things, you know. So that's why I made it paid. So somebody came and they renamed themselves and they did funny things. So
okay, so we had a disruptive innovator. Yeah. We had a disruption. We had a disruptor, innovator. I don't know. Anyway,
I'm sorry.
So
let me just make my last point, because Harsha would never interrupt. So she might say, Michael, perhaps you could get on the point or something. We're very good friends, as you know. But let me finish the Matari story. So with 150,000 alumni, I said, are you in contact with them? I mean, you should have a contract with them so that, and maybe the contract is a friendly contract, so that you, when you could, contribute something to the NGO. And 150,000 of them could easily cover the budget of that slum and increase it. And therefore it wouldn't, as it does now, keep asking the Norwegians and the Dutch and Comedy Central and the rest of it for funds to support what they're doing, which is wonderful. But I've been trying to convert them as much as I can into a social enterprise. I'm not hands-on. I don't go to their offices very much, but I'm in contact on a daily basis, because I think it's up to them to sort it out, not this guy here from the West or wherever he's from. Is that I'm happy to give them ideas and suggestion and ask them how they're getting on and what sort of mistakes are they making. But it is working. And even today, as I speak, under the COVID, they're actually getting revenue into their NGO from people using, for example, a gym that they built and a school that they built and some vocational training activities that they built. So obviously it's not going to cover everything, but it's moving that way. So just one example, and I think there are many, many, many others. And I think we will see that. And generally I say that to NGOs in general, not everyone, because sometimes it's very, very difficult, but to try and think about revenue earning opportunities and to support the development goals that you're doing, which of course is linked to, well, SDG is what we now call development. When I first got into this, the business of development, in fact, I told you my story at the Institute of Development Studies 40 years ago in Sussex, which was the center and still is, I think, of development studies, is that the head of that institute, called Dudley Sears, and it's named after him, said to me that development is all about maximizing life expectancy at birth. If you think about that, maximizing life expectancy at birth, because it depends, life expectancy depends on everything. Huh? I mean, if you're a poor person, you're going to have a lower life expectancy. If you're a drug addict and so on. And if people who live longer are the people generally, not everybody, who live healthy lives and are well educated and the rest of it. So what I've done actually in a paper, which is actually in my book, and I can also share it with you, is I've kind of converted the SDGs into development thinking, and the focus is life expectancy at birth. So all the SDGs, do they fit into maximizing life expectancy at birth? So you can imagine, and you know me by now, I'll have a graph and a chart and the rest of it. And that way you can also look at things that were missed by the SDGs, because the SDGs, I think, are a wonderful instrument. However, they were done by a committee, which was done over the years at the UN. They did involve the private sector, which is why I think today the private sector is really interested in the SDGs. So very, very timely. But because there's so many of them, 17 and 69 indicators and the rest of it, what people do, they just pick on one and say, well, we're doing something on the SDGs. Okay, better than nothing, and I don't mind them saying that. But to me, and I'm at heart, and I'm going to finish now, a systems analysis, a systems analyst, is I think in terms of systems, and I think development in terms of systems. So why are some people not maximizing their life expectancy at birth? Quite often, and there's a lot of poverty, especially in your country, is because of lack of opportunities, essentially. So NGOs, are you giving them opportunities, and are you involved in that, and are you getting some revenue from it?
Sure. Thank you,
anyway,
Mike.
I've gone up too much. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to thank myself.
No, but I think you did manage to kind of touch upon some of the questions of the 25 that I threw at you. But let me but I think before I'll come to Sumati now. But from what you said, Michael, I mean, the last thing when you were just saying how you've converted the SDGs into basically the points on life expectancies and kind of map it out, I would see social entrepreneurship and social enterprise in a way, basically how to convert the SDGs. Let's take a starting point, even if they don't cover everything, and like you said, but how a business opportunity can be kind of generated while meeting that particular target or sub-target or indicator or sub-indicator, right? So that is one. While you were narrating these case studies, what struck me was this idea of having, why don't you do it this way, right? And this has come from the expertise and the experience and the exposure and the opportunities that you had and those people did not have, right? The local, the NGO that you were talking about. And I'll go to Sumati, but just wanted to share this one kind of case study that I included in the book, from which I've kind of said that this MOC, the missed opportunities cognizant mindset, can be at play to kind of germinate these ideas. And I'll give you an example from India, and Sumati will bring in more. But there was this program that used to run, it was like a preschool program. In India, we have preschool, which are called balwadis, and anganwadis, which are either run, yes, they're supposed to be run by the government, but then this NGO partner was kind of partnering with the government to run these anganwadis. Now, what we saw was that while these 3-year-old kids were coming and sitting in their families only, there were these less than 3-year-old kids and pregnant women. The mother was pregnant or an aunt was pregnant, and the child either, so in a year or 2 years or 3 years, another child would be sitting in the same area in the same preschool class, right? So what is constant is the family is not really moving, right? And the setup that has been, the infrastructure that has been created to set up that preschool, and the investment that has been done in the training that has been done. There was a model that they used to get a local person from the community and train that person. Obviously that person was not a certified early child caregiver, but it was like a frugal kind of an some training that was done. But in this, now this was all from the literacy and the numeracy and emergent literacy perspective. Now when this landscape was looked at, when from an MOC mindset, it was like, there is whole body of research that says early years nutrition is important, even prenatal nutrition is important, it has long term effects, it has irreversible effects, right? So while these kids are coming, their parents, and there was a need, and there was a kind of a lacuna, if I call it, that these people who were running the preschools wanted to engage with the parents, so that while for 3 hours or 2 hours the child is in the preschool, it's fine, but then what happens to the home environment? So there was this need to get the parents once in a while, or the caregivers, to the fold, right? And they were not really interested, or kind of ready to engage. So and this was one need that the NGO or the program running the preschool program had. And on the other side, when this landscape was looked at, we saw that there was this huge need to address the nutrition and health and that environment of the child, who in 2 years, of the current child and the prospective child who's going to come. So, and what mothers and parents were more interested were in, how should I take care of the child? If there is diarrhea, it is still the second largest killer in under 5 in India. So how do I take care of? So all those things which are happening to them, what should I feed, what should I not feed, were of more immediate concern to them and interest to them. So what I'm trying to say is that this win-win, the landscape was looked at from the focus point to look at what are the opportunities and the primary objectives were, and to kind of see what could be done more. If we are doing SDG, one SDG, how could the other SDG be done, right? And why it should be done? Because I mean, the NGO, to the NGO, it would be taking resources away from them. But then when a win-win was established, see, this way these people would come to your sessions, and then we kind of designed it in such a way that, okay, 2 activities will be on nutrition, and 2 activities will be on the emergent literacy that you would want them to go back and do with the children more. So that was the design innovation that was done. Now, the point that I was trying to make about entrepreneurship here, and it all became because there was no kind of budget and there were no funds that were available. So we said, how do we make it sustainable? So what another anchor was, in the same families, there was a adolescent girls and boys who were there, right? Either in the neighborhood or in the family. So this whole early years care program was, turned into a course. These girls were enrolled in that course, and they were kind of given a certificate when they completed, and their project was to go and do these meetings, right, where they would do the emergent literacy and the health and nutrition. So what I'm trying to say was, some of them did the certificate, and at block level, at sub-district level, these certificates mean a lot in the local community, right? That they have had some, and this NGO was very well known, so anything coming from their end was well respected. So some girls, they took the certificate and went. Some, actually, there were case studies where they opened their own centers, where they opened their own daycare centers, and they were able to kind of generate income stream for them. So what I'm trying to say is that this ideology, this mindset of entrepreneurship is applicable, and it can be easily turned into social entrepreneurship if you kind of think from the SDGs and see how I kind of make a business out of achieving this, and look at the triple bottom lines. To which, Sumati, I'll come to you. When you started off, you said, success for you is not making parallel platforms, but actually leveraging the platforms. programs. Now, when I see CSR, and in India, we have a unique position where we have a law, right? I know there's a lot of discourse around what is happening around that, but having said and done, still, it is a unique proposition that is available in the country, that there is a law. And so there is an engagement between the corporate mindset and the the charity kind of, if I may say, the mindset, right? And how the earlier part of the discussion, when we were talking about how the CSR is moving towards the CSBM, the business models, how it is moving towards innovation, social innovations, how the shareholder is kind of approach is moving towards the stakeholder approach now. So, and given the demand and the need in the landscape, how do you see this kind of engagement of social entrepreneurship, and hence the need for the CSR folks to be switched on about these social enterprise, this concept of social entrepreneurship, so that this can be embedded into the system, and wherever they are kind of deploying their CSR resources and mind set, this can be woven into that. So from your experience, Sumati, especially in India, do you think that people who are running the CSR portfolios, who are employed in CSR, who are thinking about CSRs, needs to take a deeper look on all this social enterprise and the trends, and probably it'll help them to reflect, go back and reflect more on how we make strategies, and obviously if the NGOs would benefit in getting some sort of overview towards social entrepreneurship, even if they are not, each one of them is not really running a startup, so to say. Who knows, they might. But do you think that this orientation is kind of makes sense now more than ever? Over to you, Sumati.
Thank you, Smriti. And I think a whole fund of a lot of insightful information from Michael. Thank you. I'll just make one observation, which is more related to perception, right? Now, whole situation that we have passed through, and maybe even a little before that, if you look at the Edelman-Weiss Trust Barometer, all of these indications have very clearly stated that, the employer of choice is a person or a company, a leader or a company who really invests in, a social cause, right? Now, there is a whole range in the communication perspective that is coming out on cause marketing. You buy one product, of ours, and we sponsor education for one child, etc. So if I'm going to pick up a packet of spices, I'd rather pick up from the company which is, doing something for the society, and therefore from their perspective, it builds loyalty, but also from the, brand index perspective, they move up. So I think companies now realize that it is absolutely inevitable for them to position themselves as socially responsible companies, because there is actual money, attached to it, revenue streams attached to it. So that's one observation. But as we go delve a little deeper into the healthcare space, I'd like to just make a couple of observations and give two examples, especially to people who are looking at social entrepreneurship, CSR people in this space, because they can look at startups for funding, right? No, if I'm looking at the sector of healthcare itself, Smriti, you know this very well. Probably Michael, you do. Dr. Upadhyay will definitely know this, that, the doctor-patient ratio in India is quite low, right? And yes, you have an Ayushman Bharat, which is trying its best to cover, but is it enough? That's another question that we need to ask ourselves. And then, how, what kind of innovations are really, relevant in this space? What are the difficulties on the ground? See, I may sit here and say, oh my God, this is the coolest app. As a CSR person, I'm talking, okay, I love this app. I'm going to go ahead and sponsor it. It throws up data, somebody will input this, somebody will take that out, etc., etc. But when you actually go on the ground, see, I have had my ideas in the similar way, and I've learned from my mistakes. I have walked the slums of Dharavi, Kagaria, Sahib Gunj, aspirational districts that are identified by the government now. And what the feel on the ground was completely different. I don't know. I mean, some of the apps they work because most of them don't have smartphones, right? They have basic phones where they, kind of receive calls. So should I look at probably something that is voice enabled, for example? Or, there is an ASHA worker. Supposing you actually go with that ASHA worker on the ground, you will find that she's actually struggling by carrying various things. Now, can I probably in the innovation create a small community kit for her where, I put a handheld device, a little, maybe a fetal Doppler, which is a wind up kind of a version, so I can make this kit together. So then she can go out, look at the, maternal indicators. If the mother is pregnant, then if the child is this thing, as a child had his polo, etc. Somewhere where she can, instead of writing down everything, going back to this thing, feeding it, then telling the, connecting to the hospital. Is there something that I can give her that she can do these things quickly, right? During this course, there's one particular wonderful example that came up. I don't know how many of you have heard of Niramai, which is a small handheld device to detect breast cancer. It can just be put into the bag of the ASHA worker. Given that breast cancer is high, even if you don't have a proper device, at least if you can say breast self-examination is the only way. Are we coming up with things like this? That's one. So, I mean, we did in our Philips Digital Accelerator, Niramai was one of the people who, came to Philips for mentorship. And now they're doing extremely well. Why is the social innovation doing well? Started by two women, is because this was a relevant innovation. If I'm able to test more people, I'm able to prevent that. Okay, so we did an awareness campaign where we reached around 1 crore people, as the award I had won for it and things like that. So this is something that, there is a call for action. There is a resolution on the ground. It is reaching the SDG goals. So that's one of my things, because if you are looking at the healthcare field, there is, accessibility is a huge issue. So can I create more accessibility through POC devices, point of care devices? Now, when I am doing this already, for example, when I say do not create a parallel system, there are enough PHCs, Smriti, but they are ill-equipped. Now, as a CSR person, can I think beyond my company and beyond my, performance rating? And how do I look to the board? How do I present to the board? Can I think beyond that? So can I go to the, my board and say, hey, I'm going to go and talk to the government from a public affairs perspective. I'm going to ask them to probably give me the PHC, access to the PHC, or, whatever little they can do with it. Then I'm going to probably, maybe I'm a device manufacturer. So I will put in my devices there. I'm going to go to a hospital and I'm going to say, hey, can you come in here? And then I'm going to give that holistic solution at a lower rate. I will ask the government to subsidize to some extent or whatever, right? And then supposing there is another pharmaceutical company that I can work with, which is anyway doing work in the area. Now, can we all come together and, probably look at about 10, 15 PHCs, create that model. And if this PPP or public-private partnership kind of a model works, now can I scale that up?
Sure.
Okay. So, I'm saying think out of the box, supposing you've made a device that needs an add-on of something else. Why don't you two come together? I think we need to, start looking at the goal more commonly. I know that it's a very difficult thing to do because I've been on the corporate side and, it isn't easy, right? I mean, even if you're looking at partnering with somebody who's not in your competitive space, then also you are a little worried about, how they're going to be. Is it going to work? Should I work in that area? Should I go to a different area? So I think that is, one of the things that we should look at, kind of go beyond. And the second one really is about Smriti, creating a holistic solution. Okay, this is one example. Now, if I go a little further, Path, I think some of you may be familiar with Path. So we worked with Path because we felt that uptake of breastfeeding in India had to be higher, right? How do you do that? Now you have to look at policy at one level where the government brings in a policy saying every government hospital must have a comprehensive health management, breast cancer management center, lactation management center. Sorry. So how do I do that? Now they came up with a small device that could store breast milk. Okay, Philips has the event device that could extract breast milk, a breast pump, right? So can we both come together and also submit studies to the government, change policy with regard to that, which we were, which Path was able to do. And then we got in, I don't know, Ruchika said she's on the call. If she's there, she will be able to, say that how well it was done by them. So we created a lot of awareness material that, because this person, she has to go to work. She can't stay for long in the hospital. So there are economic considerations. But yet she wants to breastfeed her child because she doesn't want, it increases immunity. There are various, advantages on breastfeeding, right? So how do I not only look at the awareness part of it, I'm looking at providing a place in the hospital, and I'm looking at, it's not only creating an innovation. How am I creating an ecosystem around the innovation? Is the ecosystem actually pushing, enabling my innovation forward? And is, when I do enable my innovation, is it bringing result? Like the SDG goals, are we really aligning? Are we moving the needle on the cause? To what extent? I'm not saying, initially it has to be huge. So that for me really is another consideration, right? And as a CSR person, my last advice here would be, please walk the street. Do not create or sponsor any innovation that does not work on the ground. It may be cool, but it will be cool only on your shelf. Please, please, please walk the street.
Sure. Michael, you were saying something?
Yeah, a couple of things. One that came out of the last Zoom meeting I had a couple of hours ago was with the professor of medicine at King's College London, and also head of Great Ormond Street Hospital, talking about short videos that they've developed to train people, not to begin with, but to continue, and especially in these days. And those leads me into the second point that, and I take your point about technology, Sumati, is that the good thing about these videos is that they're short. I mean, with probably a couple of hours, you could get the necessary training. Obviously, you're not going to be perfect when you apply it. And that was the second point of it, which is, as you were talking, is a question of time. And I'm thinking, I'm always starting little businesses myself, and then I usually fund them myself, because for me to go and work with a company to develop it, which might lead to much more investment, would take more of my time. And as you know, if you thought about financing almost anything, sponsoring a course like this, and trying to get people to sponsor it, it just takes time to convince people. So how can we shorten that? And the third thing I'd like to, so the first was about the videos. The second thing is about time. And the third is, and you mentioned that, is about technology. I think that today that technology is getting so cheap that certainly here in Kenya, obviously not yet in India, but in Kenya, most people have access to a cheap mobile phone, and they don't use money anymore. They use their mobile phones to pay for everything. These are not very expensive, and internet prices here are very, very low. I don't know what they are in India, but for example, the United States internet prices are quite high, as they are in Europe. They need to be much lower, so that poorer people can have access to them. And then that leads us to the SDGs. I mean, one of the crucial things about everything is education, is learning, and including Smriti about nutrition. I mean, I'm fascinated by it. I read everything, even now, about should I be eating this and what's most healthy and the rest of it. And I think we're lucky because we do have access to information. These days we can go online and very quickly get the responses. There is one problem with the online service these days, is that it's copying all your clicks and things that you've ever done. And so when you Google these days, they're going to give you a product that they think you would like, which might not be particularly the best. So one has to be careful with all these tools. But I think in many ways, technology has always been the answer from the steam engine from before to good nutrition. That certainly where I came from, my country, because of um, free health and free education, I was able to live to this old age that I am now, which is coming up to 175. I'm even higher, older than your oldest man.
Sure.
And I know I look it.
Thank you, Michael, for before I know it. We are hitting 8:04 already.
Just one point on the MOC mindset that I missed, Smriti, may I?
Sorry, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that, I've, like Francis Bacon said, some of the books need to be, kind of tasted, some others chewed and digested. So I think Smriti's book is one of them. And I think I've read it about 3 times. And from that, I'd like to make a point, with an example where in the midst opportunities cognizant, when we actually went out to the field and worked in the RM and CHA cycle, that reproductive, maternal, child and health and adolescent care in various about 22 districts across India. At that point of time, we took people who were in the area, right? People who had just done their 6th standard, 7th standard, 8th standard, women, to talk to others. So they covered a certain number of houses. And not only did we reach our goals in terms of making their life better through the whole cycle, but also we taught them a particular skill which not only affected them to have a better life, but the others also. And I know some of them have gone on to become ASHA workers, and some of them have got together and we taught them about eating right in a very nice way. We asked them to cook and things like that, right? So they've got together in Dharavi and they cook they have a small place where they cook only millets.
Very interesting. So that's not the primary objective, right?
Exactly.
Right. Thank you for bringing that. And while I know we are kind of 5 minutes over, I'll be summating it. But just on while you gave this eating and nutrition example, and Michael was on that point that he still likes to read. I don't know whether Michael has seen Sumati is country director, Arogya World, which has this very impressive My Thali. Michael, do look it up. You get these small nuggets every day, almost to from immunity to healthy eating to NCD management, weight management, diabetes management. So that is one source that you should. I know Sumati will stand by that and say that you should see. So
Can you send me the link?
So yeah, that's called My Thali, and Sumati can share this thing for you.
Thank you.
But so thank you so much, both of you. I know for those of you who have been listening to us and who will be looking at this chat, because we kind of set up this chat, and it was my idea to kind of have these roundtables as a precursor to the course that is coming. Obviously, when the course comes, it is across, I think, 5 days, 2 hours, and there is a segment and there is a flow to it, and but what these sessions are doing, and I'm so happy what they're doing, is they're kind of just touching so many areas, from CSR to the need, because when a typical way of thinking about social entrepreneurship, it is kind of equated to startups. B, startups are equated to young people. So there are so many stereotypes around it. So I think what this course, what these precursors are, I hope they are able to do, is they are able to establish the relevance of who are the stakeholders who should be talking about, who should be looking at social entrepreneurship. And you, coming from the CSR field and the health communication field, have so beautifully put that across, that there is the need, the landscape is changing, your CSR folks, education system needs to gear up, the CSR folks need to gear up to get oriented about this whole concept. And what I'm very happy is, well, the book that Sumati mentioned, and I kept mentioning, and I see on Sumati's shelf, is called Of Missed Opportunities, One Too Many. I'm so happy that I have not missed this opportunity to create interfaces where these diverse voices, because all this cannot be put in the course. And I do sincerely hope, when we do run the course every 2 hours every day, it gives this reflective space, for CSR folks, for students, for women, for young people to kind of come, listen, and have this reflective space to ideate, which you're not able to do when you're, in your usual business of things. And with that, I'd like to conclude the session from this this session that I attended last month. Dr. Muhammad Yunus, there are some sessions that are going on, and I attended one of them, and he said, this is a brilliant opportunity for us during the lockdowns, that the world is on pause, right? So that you can reflect, you can do the design thinking, you can fix whatever needs to be fixed, you can see how you can align businesses to social impact and marry the two. And it will be unfortunate if whenever the pause button is released and we are again running, and he said something of a train, that we are now, the train has stopped. So if we get off and we mend the things, and it will be unfortunate if we miss this opportunity and get off the train again and just go our own ways. I mean, the usual business of things, because that cannot happen. So I really hope that this course gives the reflective space. It is my sincere effort to get as many voices. I know sometimes we've kind of gone off track. We've kind of covered a lot. It has not been a logical sequence, but we have covered things like triple bottom lines are important. Success has to be more than financial. How the landscape has changing, how the aspirations are changing, how expectations are changing, and how business needs to deliver. And business is not this vacuum concept. Business is made by people, the people who are running the portfolio. So all this thinking needs to come there, and they need to be stakeholders here. So with that, and my heartiest thanks to both of you and IICSR, I hand it over to IICSR to make any last comments, so that we can wrap it up. I know we are 10 minutes over, but I could listen to both of you forever. Over to IICSR, Harsha, if you're there.
So thank you for organizing this, Smriti. It's been great and very insightful session indeed. I really liked the viewpoints of Smriti and Dr. Hopkins coming up with the international viewpoint. So it's a great mixture that you've managed and shaped the entire course of action. I'd like to again announce that we have the upcoming course from 12th, and please feel free to roll in the sessions for knowing more on social entrepreneurship and disruptive innovation. I'd like to thank heartfully to Dr. Hopkins for making it, and Dr. Smriti Arugya, and to Dr. Pava.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Signing off now. Thank you. Thank you.